Hello and welcome to this episode of Natter with Neve. And today I have the wonderful Raphy Mendoza, whom I know through Facebook and mainly through her art. Welcome, Raphy.
Thank you for having me. So glad to be here.
Raphy, looking at the form you filled in for us, one of the things you said, the person you said that inspired you most was a Melinda Bubbis. Now, I've never heard of her. Can you tell me a little bit about who she is and why she inspires you?
Yeah. So she wrote a book called Banana Heart Summer. And before that book, I didn't really know anything about her. And to be honest, she's not somebody that I've kind of like stalked and followed. I don't think her social media presence is all that big. But there was something about that book that yeah, just really touched me because the book was about her. Basically, it's written in fiction, but it's based on her own life story. And I
Mhm.
come from the Philippines, as does Melinda, and she wrote about her experience of extreme poverty in the Philippines. And in her telling of the story, it showed so much of the discrepancy between the classes in modern Philippines. And within that, you can really see how that's a result of the kind of cultural trauma that we've experienced as a nation. We're a very young country, like
Mm.
the UK has pubs that go back to like 1000s, and
Yeah.
like, whereas we have nothing written in history beyond the last 500 years, if that. Um, and in the process of the Philippines like really being on the map involved colonialism and being discovered by a Portuguese traveler called Magellan with the Spanish Armada. And so from that's really been the beginning of our known history. Before that, we were several hundred islands of different tribes and different people, and within a very short period of time civilization came to be, and that has a cost on its
Mm.
people, on its land, on its culture. And so there was something about the way she told her personal story that tapped into kind of the spirit, the wounds, the trauma, as well as the resilience and the resourcefulness of the Filipino people. And she, the way that she talked about the richness of some of her experiences and her journey of coming out of that kind of family history and lineage of poverty and making her way to Australia, where she's now, like an award-winning contemporary author. And this is coming from a culture that, you know, doesn't have the privilege of valuing the arts because it's so rooted in its own survival.
Yeah.
So that's something very inspiring about that because she represents my people, she represents the arts, she represents the kind of healing in that way.
Yeah, and I know your art is very important to you as well. And I know, I mean, that's how I came across you, was on Facebook, was you talking about your art and helping other artists put themselves out there. And I can imagine that if you come from somewhere where there is real poverty and where you're just, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be the Philippines, does it? Anywhere. There's lots of places in the world where people are just surviving from day to day, wondering where the next meal is coming from. I'm guessing it can be very hard to make art
Yeah,
a priority or even a purpose in your life.
totally. And this is the thing, it's really difficult to explain poverty until you've seen it with your own two eyes. Like, the poverty in the UK is real. There are families who are not able to make ends meet. The benefit system is completely um not fit for purpose anymore. The NHS is
Mhm.
the same, so on and so forth. So I don't want to negate the poverty that we experience in this country. It most definitely is, especially if you look at the consequences of that in terms of fulfillment as well as like physical health. It's a real thing. And yet we're talking about the kind of poverty where you have, a family living in an attic and there's 13 of you and contraception is not heard of. So you people just keep reproducing, and people are living in shacks, and the way to make money would be to steal cigarettes and then sell them piece by piece in the heat of the sun when there's like traffic and people are looking for something to buy while they're sitting
Yeah.
in cars. It's like it's just like it's a different reality. Um,
Yes.
and so yeah, in those instances, it's very difficult to think beyond like, well, where's my next meal coming from? And simultaneously, because people have to live in the moment, so much richness comes out of that of those experiences as well. Not just stories being told, but the Philippines is very um big on music and performing and dance and things like that, particularly like, like street culture,
Yeah.
because once you figured out where your next meal is coming from, for by whatever means, there's nothing else to do. So what do? You reach down inside yourself and go, well, what can I what can I create? Because I've got time. Haven't got food,
Yes.
haven't got money, haven't got a home, but I have time and I have spirit and like and a will to keep living despite the the really dire situation. So it's like that's fascinating to me how, yes, on one respect, like it's very difficult to create from a place of fight or flight and survival, but at the same time, when you're so forced to live in the moment because the survival is that extreme, actually you come back round full circle as well. And to me, that's a fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean that's where we're meant to be, really, isn't it? Living in the moment and being creative.
Yeah.
And I find that, when I talk to people here, I mean, I write, I've written poetry for as long as I can remember. I don't publish most of it, but um, that's my kind of creative outlet. And but a lot of people will give that up these days, and Netflix,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
it's so much easier, isn't it, to just sit down and turn on the TV and not tap into our innate creativity. Which for me, creativity, as I said, it's an outlet. It's an emotional outlet, as well as, you know, a way of saying to the world, here I am, this is me. Um, so what would you say to somebody who wants to create art, who, maybe in childhood, took art classes, they were a good artist, but now they've kind of let it slip.
Mm,
And instead of going out and getting their paintbrushes or, going out to the shop and buying a sketch pad, they just buy a new Netflix subscription. What would you say to somebody?
mm. When we don't prioritize our art, when we don't prioritize the things that means we have to be silent and we have to reflect and we have to be present with ourselves, and especially if we're also the kind of person who likes to consume creativity, there's two things that could be happening. One, you're consuming creative work, and kind of living that creativity vicariously because somewhere somehow you've decided that you're not able to create, which
Mm.
is great. Or there's something fundamentally about yourself that you're avoiding, something about yourself that you've negated, something about yourself that you've made wrong, some experience that you don't want to look at, and somewhere in your body it knows that if you were to actually sit down and be present enough to be able to create something, that experience, that emotion would come up and you don't want to face it. So what I would say to this person is, what are you avoiding? What are you
Mhm.
avoiding that has you not want to create and that has you believe that you can't? And or whichever one of those scenarios is true for your versions of those scenarios, it really comes down to what are you avoiding.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and a lot of us, that we spend our lives in avoidance, don't we?
Yeah,
And we fill our moments up with busyness, and we do things for others, and
yeah,
we don't say yes to ourselves because we're so intent on kind of avoiding
yeah,
that inner work. But I mean, I know you're an artist, and I've seen some of your work, and I love it. But creativity for me doesn't just it's not just about art, is it?
of
Because I
course,
can't draw.
of course.
Um,
No, no, no. I mean, creative, I mean, it's definitely not just about drawing. And, and yes, we can widen out the definition of art to things like poetry and writing and dance and music, etc. All those things are definitely art. But I would go even further because, as well as being an artist, I'm also a coach. And I would say that dialogue is an art form, to be
Mhm.
able to not just have a conversation about something, not just to use language to describe the world that apparently already exists, but to use language to transform perception. Because what art does ultimately is it changes the way people see. As artists are
Yes.
leaders in the evolution of consciousness, because our work, when it's experienced, changes how that person perceives in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's imperceptible, but it happened. And
Yeah.
when we change the way that people see the world, then that's how we change the world. And so, as artists, we have a very integral role, especially in moments of history where everything seems like it's on fire. That's when we're most needed. And I believe that, some business owners who's put their heart and soul into their business are artists through their business. And I'm an artist through my painting and my poetry and my coaching, because my intention that's imbued in my speaking is about creating art. It's about
Yeah.
changing perception, which is what poetry does, which is what music does. And that's why it feels counter to survival, because survival is about continuing to exist in the current reality, whereas art is about changing that reality.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a feeling that they go at odds.
Mm.
But as human beings, we are traversing both universes. We are both participating in the consensus reality that's there, and the paradigm that we've all agreed upon as reality, and we're creators of it simultaneously. And the art of living is being able to tread that line with such awareness that you can have the power to create without negating what's currently so. And
Yeah.
that's hard, but that is the point. That's life when you're really living it.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, we have the whole thing, where you can be in a really bad mood and you suddenly hear a song and everything shifts, or you see a beautiful painting and suddenly or even it doesn't have to be a beautiful painting, you just see another side of life and something shifts for you.
Yeah,
Um, and then again, we've got that where we're living in that kind of day-to-day hard existence. And sometimes doing something creative feels like it can be a waste of our
yeah,
resources and our time.
yeah. It feels
That's the
fruitless.
hard bit, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and like I get it. Like we have to work, we have to pay the bills, etc. And I'm not suggesting that everybody is required to create a business in order to fulfill their purpose. Like there are certain things that we have to take care of. That's part of our self responsibility, self leadership, and self respect, for
Mm.
sure. And yet, we make time for the things that matter. And if we have internalized the message that art is frivolous, then that's how we will treat it, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But if you're somebody who feels this aching kind of sinking feeling in your heart and in your gut because you're not fulfilling your creative desire, then it's a problem for you specifically,
Mm.
because there's a part of yourself that you have denied, which means you're not whole, and therefore not healthy, because health means wholeness. And one of the things that I talk about is the seven types of energy and the seven areas of health, which I
Mm.
link to the chakra system, if you're familiar with your
Yes. Yeah.
and so we have physical health, which we all know matters. We have mental health, which we're starting to understand matters. We have emotional health, which we confuse with mental health because it's
Mm,
not. It's a completely different energy. We have social health, being connected with people, which is increasingly becoming difficult to do because we've lost sense of community. We have sensory health, and which you can also call as energetic health. We have
mm,
creative health, the ability to create something out of nothing, which is inherently human. And we have
mm.
spiritual health. And when any one of these areas are missing or negated or overactive or underactive, we feel it in all the other areas because that's how our energy systems work. It's one whole thing.
Yeah.
If we continue as a society to tell ourselves that creativity is frivolous, we will suffer. And that change at a global level begins with us, the ones who know and does not need to be convinced that we are creative and that we need to create. We need to change our own mindset in thinking about it as a frivolity. It's in fact a necessity. And the more
Yeah.
we do that for ourselves, that then ripples out, especially when we're brave enough to put our work out there.
Mm. I mean, yeah, there is the whole idea that we're creating in every moment, that we're actually creating our reality by the words we say and the thoughts we think. So that at our very core, we are creative.
Yeah.
That we can't do anything without creating something.
Yeah, and it's all about intentionality and awareness. Like if we are creating our lives moment to moment, when we're conscious of it, then we have power to create with intention. If we're not conscious about it, then we are just creating a nightmare or a mess. Either way, we are creating. So if you're
Yeah,
looking at your life and you're wondering what the hell happened here, like you did that, which means you have the
yeah,
power to do something different.
yeah. And that's, I think, is the hard bit for a lot of people is they're
Yeah,
doing something different. Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned something about purpose earlier. I'd like to kind of explore, and we haven't really got into your story much either, but I would like to explore the link between purpose and creativity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's, I mean, really, it's about creating with purpose. Mm, what is purpose? Purpose is a commitment.
Mm,
You make a commitment for your life, making a difference in a particular way. So, if I were to ask, well, what's your purpose? What I'm really asking is, what is your life's commitment? Which is
yeah,
another way of saying, what is it that your life is in the service of?
yeah. So what I would say, what would you like someone to write on your gravestone? Your epitaph, in a way.
Yeah,
What have you
I don't know
done?
about my epitaph,
Yeah.
but my purpose is to empower people to be who they really are, to
Mm,
live as they truly are. And I chose to work with artists, and I have a very broad definition of artists because while
yeah.
every person, every human being is fundamentally designed to be creative, not everybody chooses the path, which is fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you at all if you choose not to go down that path. That is absolutely fine. But for those who do, it's a hard path, and and it is in a world that isn't really designed for you for whatever reason. It's very hard and it's very radical to wake up every day and commit to being who you truly are.
Mhm.
But to do so makes a difference to the other person's own purpose and vision. And mine is to empower that. So in a way,
Yeah.
it's like everybody's commitment is my commitment by default. But that for me is what's there. And I came to the um realization of how important it is to have a purpose through my own experience of mental health issues, particularly
Mm.
depression, some anxiety, but mostly depression and suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
I struggled with that since probably since I was like 12 or 13. When I was 17, I was officially diagnosed. I was on medication until 21, and then I stopped my medication. Um, and I was really just like in and out of this, like, what's the fucking point? There's nothing I
Mm.
can do in this world that's worth anything. I can't make a difference to the things that I care about. Half the time, I don't even care about the things that I care about because I'm so disillusioned with everything else.
Yeah.
And literally nobody cares. There are 8 billion people in the world. Like, why should I matter? All of these things were just like there. And I fought that battle for a long time. And I think for me, the turning point, suicide, like I've still experienced bits of depression here and there. It's something that you
Mm.
manage, it doesn't go away. But the extremeness of it is not there because I have a context for what's happening. And that context came from, I was like at my lowest point. Um, and, I kind of decided, okay, like I'm gonna do it, like I'm just gonna end it all,
Mm.
etc. And then I kept kind of like hesitating. I was just like hesitating, and it was like over the course of like 24 hours in a day. And at some point, I just had this, I was actually talking to myself out loud. I'd kind of gone a bit insane. And I was like, okay, well, look, we've been having the same conversation for about 10 years. So
Mm.
either do it or don't. Like, decide one way or another. Let's make a final decision. And so I said, okay, well, let's say I've decided to stay. Okay, I've decided to stay. And, the other voice, and okay, good, then we can stop talking about it. Now that you've decided to stay, what the fuck are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do now that you've decided to stick around? And, you know, and after a while, all of the same questions that had been haunting me, like, what's the point? Why am I even here? Why does any of it matter? I was still asking those same questions, but instead of it coming from a place of resignation, where I already knew the answer to be, there's no point. You don't
Yeah.
matter. It started coming from a place of curiosity where it's like, well, what is the point? Why am I here? Now that I've decided to stick around, why am I sticking around? Like, what's really happening here? So the pivotal point was deciding and committing to being here. And then from
Mm.
that commitment, creating a much bigger commitment of like, what difference am I going to make given that I'm here? And I've decided to be here, and this is my choice. Um, and that was the turning point because from then, everything I did had a context. At the beginning, it was about exploration of what is the point. And then I discovered what that point was by living and doing things and creating stuff and having conversations and connecting with people. And then from that purpose, I'm like, okay, well, if that's what I want to do, if that's a difference that I can make, how am I going to do that? 24,000 billion ideas came to mind about how I can create a life in which I empower others to be who they truly are. I decided
Mm.
on, this particular business and these particular offers. And that's the energy that's imbued in everything that I do. And, so for me, all of that is art because it was
Yeah.
created as nothing from a place of purpose. And when you have that context, for sure depression is still a thing, and yet when the depressive thoughts come, I'm like, okay, but I know why I'm here, so we don't have to have that conversation. So the episode
Yeah.
becomes like, sometimes 20 minutes instead of 20 years. And it's, and yeah, and it's the antidote is purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a difference between depressive thoughts and
Yeah,
depression. Depressive thoughts, as you said, they come and go, don't they?
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think we can all have those. They just,
yeah.
and especially in those moments when things feel hard. Um, but I mean, I love I don't love the fact that you were depressed, but I love that you got out of it. And for me, I mean, for me, the root of my depression, and a lot of people I talk to, the root of the depression is a sense of losing yourself,
Yeah,
the sense of not being who you are, because
yeah,
the world tells us we need to be somebody different or something different. And then we internalize that. We think, oh, we're not like everybody else. We're not. the I mean, for me, growing up, it was, you had to be the good girl. I was the clever one, so I was expected to get all these fantastic results in my exams and everything, and I couldn't live up to that. Um, and so you kind of start to internalize this is not, I'm not living up to other people's expectations, and I'm not, who am I, even if I'm not what they say I am.
Yeah, there's
And I
something
think, yeah,
is the core of that wound. It's like
yeah,
there's something wrong with me. Let's exit.
yeah, yeah,
That's it.
yeah. But I think exploring our creativity and allowing ourselves to explore our creativity and giving ourselves an outlet for it, whether we put it out into public or not,
That's right.
doesn't matter.
Mm.
That allows you to see part of who you are as well.
Yeah, yeah. And and it is a big step to put it out there. And I'm a big proponent that people do. You're right. Like, people don't have to. I'd much rather you create it art for yourself and never show it to anybody else than not create art at all. And yet there comes a point where creating art just for yourself, that hits a ceiling as well. Because I think we all not just want to be ourselves, but we want to be ourselves and make a difference.
Yes, yeah,
And so, yeah, for a while, let me just be brave enough to just pick up a pencil. And then after that, it's like, okay, well, I need to take the next step and actually allow this work to make a difference. And then you go from there and see, okay, like, is this just something that I share within this context? Is this something that I'm going to turn into a bigger thing? Is this,
mm,
what role do I want this to play? Um, but yeah, I am a big proponent of sharing work in some way, shape, or form, because it also gives you momentum. Like, it gives you, like, once you've put something out there, it's not only are you being who you are in creating, but you're being received as who you are. You're being received, and that connection and that being received is
mm,
so nourishing. And then that propels you to create more and be more of who you are. And then
mm,
so it creates this, like, positive feedback loop. And yeah, of course there are trolls, like, online
yeah.
and offline, but the vast majority of people want to see you you know
Yes, and also, I mean, your art, like not all art appeals to everybody. It's kind of, you'll find your own tribe. You'll find people who, your art, whatever form it takes, speaks to them.
yeah,
Um, and that's who you want to see it, really, isn't it? The people that it speaks to, the people that it can make a difference for, the
exactly.
people who see that message,
Yeah,
and even encourages them to do the same.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, it's people we I encourage everybody to take things at their own pace. And I know that the effects for yourself and for others of making your art visible is definitely worth overcoming the visibility fears, and the concerns and the fear of rejection, etc. It's like they will come, but
Yeah,
it's worth overcoming those to be truly seen.
yeah. I mean, part of me kind of believes that we were all given gifts
Yeah,
for a reason.
yeah,
And part of, I mean, if we're going to go down the route that we have a purpose, those gifts we've been given are to fulfill that purpose.
yeah,
And so if we're ignoring those gifts, then we're not making the impact in the world that we're actually here to make.
exactly.
And sometimes we do have to go through that depression and the anxiety and all the other emotional and mental health issues to actually see that for ourselves,
Yeah,
and actually to, I think sometimes that makes our art stronger because we draw from what we've experienced and put it into our art.
that I wouldn't be standing here without the lived experiences. Of course, it's the training, it's the this, it's the that, it's the studying, it's the qualifications, etc. All at least 50% important.
Yeah, yeah,
But none of that really means anything without the context of your lived experience. And for me, like, it was depression was horrible. And like I think whatever you said earlier is like, I'm not happy about the fact that it had to go through depression. But actually I would say that in a way, actually, there's a gratitude that I have for that experience, because it gives me a different level of empathy. Not just like empathy, like I'm able to put myself in other people's shoes, which in my world isn't really empathy, because that's still me in your shoes. Like, but empathy,
Yeah.
I'm being with you and I can feel exactly what you're feeling, knowing that it's yours. And I can hold compassion for that. And the more I've been able to hold compassion for myself, the more I can allow other people to be who they are in their most awful states, and be able to hold that space and not be fearful and not panic and not feel like I need to fix it. Because to get over or to overcome my depression, I had to hold that space of compassion for myself.
Yes, and we do. I mean, yeah, I'm the same. You know, I always have depression, and I am totally grateful every morning that I wake up that actually I can be content,
Yeah,
if not happy, that, you know, that those days seemingly have. I mean, that's not to say I don't have days where I feel kind of low. Of course I do. I'm human. But those days of that constant inner voice telling me, you know, I was useless, I was worthless, there was no point. What am I even doing here? Um, they're gone.
yeah,
And I will admit though that throughout, like I was more prolific at writing through my depressive periods. Actually, somehow that kind of drove my writing, and I think it, as I said, it was an emotional outlet for me. I mean, and they're the stuff that I just don't share because, like, I think people would read that and dive down a great big dark hole. But for me, that was, I guess, it was how I kept myself
yeah,
from going over the edge.
yeah. No, I get that as well. Like there's certain when I was in my depressive kind of stages as well, I was more prolific in my writing. But I think language in particular is such a it's different to visual art. Like when I need to process something, this is my experience. Actually, I interviewed somebody called Adrian who has the reverse experience. But for me, like when I have to process something, when I have to kind of really dig deep and kind of wanting to understand and be with and give voice to like a part of myself that I just don't particularly want to or like, or it's uncomfortable, language really comes into its own. Um, and I can just write and write and write and write, and that's using a creative tool with a particular intention. And when I'm in those, and my more visual art is less useful in that kind of processing element. For me, my visual art is much more about the expression of something that I've already like kind of processed to a degree.
Yes, yeah,
And for other, like I said, this other person was speaking to Adrian, for him it's different. Like for him, like throwing paint on a big canvas is much more cathartic than it is trying to write poetry. And even now, if I have something not necessarily to do with depression, but just like a difficult experience I need to process, poetry is where I do it. And
yeah,
and less so in my visual art. So I think there's definitely a different. We can use creativity both for tools of self-expression, which is one
mm,
thing, and also tools for reflection, which is a different thing.
yeah,
And yeah, and as well somatic experiences like dance, which is another creative self-expression. I'm not a performer, like that's not
mm,
something I ever feel like doing, but dancing something out, like in terms of processing it through the body and feeling my body in that way, is also a tool that I use.
yeah,
And singing as well. I'm a terrible singer. Karaoke with me, it's hilarious, but it's horrible. It's like a different brand of horrible. But there's something about that it's like I can still use my voice. And this isn't about
yeah,
self-expression. This isn't about um in the way that this isn't a piece of art that I want people to experience. This is a form of self-expression that has me process something. So yeah, there's definitely different stages and different incarnations of art in the personal journey.
Yes, I mean there certainly is. Like you, I'm a kitchen disco dancer.
Yeah.
And yeah, nobody needs to see it. I do dance like nobody's watching because nobody ever is. Singing, yeah, nobody wants to hear me sing. Um, but yeah, I mean, art is like it is very personal,
Yeah,
and how we express and what we're using it to express as well. So, I mean, the painting that or the poem that you use to express your darkest innermost secrets is not something that you have to put out there in the world.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but that doesn't mean that you should curate everything.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Um, there are some things that need to be out there. So
Yeah,
if somebody was sitting on a pile of, say, poetry that they've written, or they've got a whole stack of canvases that they've painted, they haven't done anything with them, they haven't put them out there. What would you, because I know this is kind of your area of expertise,
yeah,
this is what you do, what would you say to them today that would get them kind of started on that journey?
yeah. The first thing is, again, it goes back to purpose. What's the difference that you want to make?
Mm.
How do you want, what's the perspective that you want people to try on and maybe keep, and really holding it loosely like that. And then from there, literally just go through, like, and be really intuitive, like, go through the pile of canvases and go through the poetry and just like make a pile that feels right, and then once you have that, decide how you want to put it out. Maybe because I know this is going on Substack, maybe you decide, okay, I'm just going to put out a poem a week. I've
Mm.
got like 65,000 of them, and then let me just see how people respond. Or it may be that, you know what, no, I'm going to put it in an anthology, I'm going to publish, and I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to market it. That's also fine. It might be that you take these poems, you make a tiny little zine out of them, and you leave it randomly all over your town for people to find, like a treasure hunt. There's a million and one ways that you can put it out there, whatever that means.
Yeah,
But the first step is really looking at what is the perspective that I can offer this world that I would like people to try on, and choose pieces that correspond with that. And then you'll find pieces that fit the description, but you're like, I really don't want to share this. And you decide whether you're going to honor that, or if you're going to go, okay, I don't want to, but I will. And you make that decision bit by bit. And, this is a process that, of course, you can do on your own. But this is also a process that is aided by working with someone,
yeah.
because we're very good at lying to ourselves. Very
Yes.
easy to chicken out of things that
Mm.
you actually want to do. And it's also very easy to play it safe, and then your work not make an impact, and then you use that as evidence that none of it matters anyway, and then you go back into your hole.
Yeah,
So the process is simple, but it's not easy.
yeah.
And compassionate, supportive accountability is more than useful in this endeavor.
Yes, I mean, and I know that, for some people, they will still kind of sit on it and think they'll be thinking it's not good enough. Nobody needs to see it, or, and there's all that because we are always our own worst critics as well, aren't we?
That's right. And yeah, I that's right. Don't have much more to say. And it's like, but
Yeah,
you'll know in your heart if this is something that you need to be doing. And you'll know in your heart if this is something that, you know, you want to invest in, both in terms of your time, your energy, and your money.
yeah. And if it's something that, I guess for a lot of us, our purpose is also our passion.
Yeah,
If we have that passion for it, if we're driven to create,
yeah,
that's for a reason.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we wouldn't be creating it unless we come back to, you know, our purpose to make it to share.
And one
We
of the
are.
things I always say to people, it's like just the fact that you want to create already tells me that that's what you're supposed to be doing. Because if you
Mm,
weren't supposed to be doing it, you wouldn't want to do it. And I'm not talking
yeah,
like it's a different kind of want. Like it's not like a desire, like I want a cupcake. Like because
yeah,
that's actually just seeking comfort, for instance. But like there are times where it's like, um, like I want to climb Mount Everest. Or like I want to have a baby. Like, that want, if it's really coming from a want, that's like a deep desire. There's a reason for that. And
mm,
there's a different sensation of like that kind of want versus I want a pizza.
yeah. It doesn't go away, does it? It sits with you. It keeps
It
coming
doesn't go
back.
away. Like it's not a craving. It's like, because like I want a pizza actually means, does it, I want a pizza in my world doesn't mean I want a pizza. It means I don't want to cook, which is different.
Yes.
Or like I
Yeah,
want a cupcake doesn't actually mean I want a cupcake. It means like I need some energy because it's 3 o'clock and like and I didn't sleep and I haven't had a break. Like which
yeah.
is different. Whereas and like, I want to sleep with my boss doesn't mean I want to sleep with my boss. It means like, something else, like, some other
Yes,
thing that you do or don't want, like some other thing that you're seeking. It's like, oh, maybe that's like I'm seeking to be in a relationship with somebody who can lead me rather than being the one to lead all the time.
yes, yeah,
So it gives me an indication of what I actually want, which is leadership in my relationship, not to sleep with my boss. They're different things. Whereas when
yes,
you're saying, I want to publish an anthology of my poetry, and then you look at, well, what is that? And then you go, it means I want this perspective that are in these poems to be experienced by the world.
mm,
Like, and that's a different, that is in itself already something. It's like, well, if that's really what you want, then do that. Because that's a real one, not like a cover up one.
yes, yeah. So we need to learn to distinguish between our covert ones and our real ones
Yeah,
and go back to the real ones. And the real ones come from our purpose and our
and exactly.
creativity.
Yeah. Thank you for
Uh,
summarizing that.
And I think that's a wonderful way to just end this with that
Yeah.
little summary. And thank you so much for joining me, Raphy. Everybody will be able to find you. I'll put your details below in the description if anybody wants to contact Raphy and even just look at some of her art. Um, thank you again for joining me.
So much for having me.